morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the Staff Hearing Officer, and I call the meeting of Wednesday, June 9th to order. The first item on the agenda is under preliminary matters, and it's requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or the addition of ex-agenda items, and I have no requests for continuances. The applicants are here. The next one's on announcements and appeals, and I have no announcements, and we've had no recent appeals, correct? Okay. And is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? No, see no one. We'll go to the first item, 878 Paseo Farello. Anytime you're ready, Ellen.
All right, thank you. My name is Ellen Kokinda. Bear with me, we've got 4 modifications to get through. So the applicants are requesting 4 modifications today for 878 Paseo Farello. A front setback modification to allow a bathroom addition to encroach within the required 30-foot front setback. This is a secondary front setback along Farello Road. An open yard modification to allow the reduction in non-conforming open yard. A hedge height modification to allow for 8-foot to 13-foot high hedges to exceed the maximum of 8 feet in height at the secondary front setback along Farello Road. And then lastly, an interior setback modification to allow a proposed bathroom to encroach within the 10-foot required interior setback. This is a lot that's 5,663 square feet in the RS15 zone. It's developed with a single-family residential unit with 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a garage underneath. The existing open yard is non-conforming with only 565 square feet, kind of in this blue area. It's kind of light to see. I think the big thing to note here, this is an extremely constrained site. This tiny little triangle is the only kind of conforming area for any kind of development, given 2 30-foot front setbacks along Paseo Farello and Farello Road, and then a 10-foot interior setback. So the proposed project involves, again, a bathroom addition at the northeast corner of the residence, and the applicant is also proposing to abate violations listed in a 2014 ZIR, a 2018 ZIR, by permitting miscellaneous as-built site improvements, which includes widening the driveway, concrete driveway, retaining walls, various fencing, and gates along the front lot line, a trash enclosure area, and an AC unit, and then an as-built fountain kind of closer to the tip. Applicants also requested minor zoning exception from the Historic Landmark Commission to allow location of waste and recycling within the interior setback. So this project is subject to design review by the Historic Landmarks Commission. They've reviewed it a total of 3 times on February 20th, March 20th, and then again on June 12th. And overall, they offered supportive comments for the bathroom addition regarding the size and the location, and they felt similarly that and that goes for both the front and interior setback modification requests. They also commented on the hedge height along the northerly lot line as being aesthetically appropriate. And they did not see that neither the addition nor the hedges pose any kind of consistency issues with the neighborhood preservation ordinance. There was public comment at HLC from the next door neighbor at 876 Paseo Farello with concerns for the bathroom addition within the interior setback, and there being kind of bathroom noises or any kind of noise, nuisance that might be there. So the HLC consent reviewer conditioned that the proposed door within the interior setback be solid in order to buffer that noise. In terms of the zoning violations, I did mention that there are 2 ZIRs from 2014 and 2018 that everything is proposed to be abated under this permit. And during a site visit, staff also noticed the two other things that were added to the scope of work. Again, that was the fountain and the AC unit. So if we want to dive into the various modification requests, the front setback modification, this is a 72-foot net square foot bathroom addition to encroach in the secondary front setback along Farella Road. Staff is supportive of this encroachment. Based on the size and location, we think this is an appropriate improvement to the lot, bringing it up to a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom residence. We don't think that there's any kind of privacy issues given the buffer of the hedges along the interior lot line and the fact that this faces the street. It's not an immediate privacy issue along the front. The open yard modification, to justify the significant reduction in the nonconforming open yard, the applicant is proposing to designate what we're calling a modified open yard. You can see that the proposed bathroom addition takes up most of the usable nonconforming open yard area. And so to supplement it, it's a reduction from approximately 565 feet of open yard to 465 feet of nonconforming open yard. And this modified open yard area is 774 square feet. And the rationale for picking out this area is that it's 10 feet from both front setbacks. It meets the 10 by 10 minimum dimensions. It's also a usable space for outdoor enjoyment. So staff felt comfortable supporting the open yard modification under the condition that this be designated in addition to this remaining portion of the nonconforming as the designated nonconforming open yard. I should just note that this area, it doesn't conform to all the standards of the open yard requirements, but again, just looking at the space, it does, from a staff's perspective, it kind of follows the purposes and intent of open yard and providing outdoor enjoyment. The hedge height modification. So this is just for the hedges located starting here along Farella Road. I'll talk about the southerly lot line a little bit later. But the modification is actually for it's the range of height from 8 feet to a maximum height of 13 feet. The applicant was told, or our zoning ordinance actually allows any hedges over 8 feet in height to 12 feet in height can qualify for a minor zoning exception that would be reviewed by the Design Review Board. But in this instance, the applicant requested a modification to keep that height, so that's why we're including the entire range. Staff is supportive of the modification for the hedges, again, because it provides privacy on an otherwise an extremely exposed lot, and this being the main area where you're probably going to be sitting and enjoying. So because it's this is facing the street, it's really not necessarily a solar issue or any kind of concern for immediate neighbors, but does provide extra buffer and privacy. Then lastly, the hedge height modification, the interior setback modification. This bathroom is proposed to encroach within the 10 feet interior setback requirement. Staff has initially made an incorrect call and informed the applicant incorrectly that it was a non-conforming addition and didn't need an interior setback. That was wrong, and so that's why we had to continue this, and we're back here to discuss it. It didn't change staff's opinion on the matter in terms of where it's located. We still think that by providing this bathroom, we think it's a reasonable size and location. And in terms of the actual door, we felt the solid door that HLC conditioned would provide adequate buffer for noise issues. We also kind of looked at the site a little bit more and thought, we really don't think that this door that's proposed in the interior setback is going to be, it's not going to necessarily be the main activity, because when you think about coming into this property, if you're driving, you come in here and most likely would be using this steps in the front door as the main entry. And for a good portion of Forello Road is redlined for no parking, so we don't necessarily imagine people parking here and then walking in to use this door. So we still see that it's not necessarily going to be as many comings and goings as perhaps the front door would be. So staff does support that. And again, there are hedges along this interior lot line to provide more buffer space. I will add that yesterday the applicant submitted an email correspondence from another planner from Dudek that discussed the location of, or the proposed floor plan and the location of the new door facing east. And said that there was likely a minor reduction in noise, a decrease. I'm going to have the applicant maybe talk through that a little bit more, but I just wanted to note it for the record. And that's more or less the kind of wrap up of all the modifications. Just in other news for this particular property, you'll see that despite that the lot line kind of ends, the southerly lot line ends here, there are many other site improvements that are actually in the public right-of-way. The public works staff has been notified and has determined that they will not be enforcing on these issues at this time. But it is noted that if Public Works ever requests any items, improvements to be removed, that it will be done so at the owner's expense. Any type of work in the public right-of-way requires an encroachment permit, and some of that will be expected because transportation operations staff also went out to the site to look at visibility issues, noted that they would have to get an encroachment permit to reduce the height of the landscaping along we call it the visibility triangle along the driveway. Also, there will need to be plants removed in this location in order to provide better sight lines at this intersection where Paseo Forello and Forello Road and maybe one other street meet. And so I imagine when there's a site visit that they'll have to trim back some of the hedges here too to improve visibility. So that was discussed that it can all be done on site prior to building permit issuance to clarify exactly what needs to be removed and to make sure that it's safe for vehicles traveling. And this is also conditioned. There's a historic wall here, a stone wall, that any type of removal of vegetation, anything that might potentially disturb that, that the urban historian must be consulted. This project was exempt from CEQA under 15301, additions to an existing facility, and 15305, minor alterations and land use limitations. We did have a handful of public comments from the first meeting and then a subsequent public comment from the neighbor that we received on Monday, and who's not in support of the interior setback modification, again due to noise concerns and not supporting that at all. I have all of these, and I know that you've also had a chance to read through them as well. That's my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Actually, I do, regarding the wall. The conditions based on what information? Because it's my understanding the wall is not this wall. It's a potential wall up.
Whoopsies.
Okay, so my question relates to the condition regarding the historic sandstone wall. When you go throughout the Riviera, you see these sandstone walls that are line, and then supports. So they're like squares and stuff. And that's my understanding what it refers to. And there is a historic wall up on Farello Road farther up, and it might go behind a little bit of the fence that's here. And that's my understanding that this isn't the historic wall, that it's up here. And I went to the site with the urban historian to see if we could see it, and we didn't see one here. So what?
So I was under the impression, my mic is on, I was under the impression that the stone wall is along this lot line. But I do know that there is at least a stone wall here that's kind of a cap and stone, or I don't know exactly how to describe it, that the adjacent parcel has. But based on the parcel tag, it was my understanding that it was this particular wall, and I could be wrong on that.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm talking with the urban historian. It's not this one here.
Okay.
Do you want me to clarify?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait. First, state your name for the record and turn on your mic.
Sarah Bronstad, representing the property owner, Lynn Proctor. There is an historic wall behind this hedge, and that actually came up at our very first HLC meeting when Nicole was here. And her question was for us to confirm whether or not the hedge would be disrupting that wall in any way. And she made the determination. So I'm surprised she doesn't remember. You can ask her. But anyhow, she said, I just want to make sure the landscaping is in no way damaging the wall, and determined that it wasn't.
Have you actually seen the wall?
Yes. And I have a photograph of it if you want me
do
to pull it
you?
up on my computer.
Yes, please. Because I went out yesterday and was looking through the hedge, and I couldn't see it.
Yeah, it's behind the hedge. That's why. You'd have to see it from the inside of the property.
Okay. Crystal, can you go see if Nicole could come down here, please? Thank you. So, sorry, while we're going on, and let me think if there's another question for staff. In your staff report, you indicate, and you also said in your presentation, that all the zoning violations were going to be abated. One of the zoning violations says the hedges along the two front lot lines exceed the nonconforming height of 8 feet. And the site plan indicates it's 15 feet. So I didn't see any, and maybe the applicant, when they provide their presentation, any indication that this is going to be trimmed down to conform to the height requirement. I know it's in the public right-of-way, but it's, the height limits.
I can at least say from staff's perspective, we kind of pulled back on that because it was in the public right-of-way, and because Public Works Engineering was not going to be enforcing at the time, and we haven't received any particular complaints about it, we didn't condition it to be reduced in height in any way.
Okay, so then my next question is, since it is in the public right-of-way and not on the private property, what's the necessity for this condition? Because it's a requirement anyways, that since it's not, the condition's number 2, public right-of-way. The city's public works department is not pursuing enforcement at this time for the site improvements in the public right-of-way. However, if any time the future public works requests that the site improvements in the right-of-way to be removed or altered, the owner shall apply for and obtain encroachment permits for all structures and work in the public right-of-way.
I think it was just to clarify that it was going to be at the owner's expense, and that that it wasn't going to be Public Works Engineering to come out and do if there are no plans for any kind of road widening or any kind of immediate plans for any kind of public work infrastructure improvement. But that the intention was that these improvements, many of them were made, maybe not by this particular owner, but they've been made over time, and that it would be at the owner's expense to remove them or to reduce them because the benefit of their property.
Yeah, that's interesting that the public right-of-way is being used for private benefit, and Public Works isn't particularly saying anything.
Right, and so that was, again, we wanted to be clear, but if you look back historically, way before I know you purchased the property, this has historically been used for private benefit for over the year. I mean, you can look at the original archive plans and see that this is where the property line was, but how this was more or less used as part of the parcel. So again, I think based on just the history that it hasn't really been touched by Public Works over the years, and they're continuing not to necessarily pursue any kind of improvements. That's why we wanted to just make sure that it was clear that if there were changes, and acknowledging that there's been quite a bit of site improvement within this area, that if it needed to be taken out or done so, that the owner would be responsible.
Okay, great. I asked you to come down because my first question was to Ellen regarding the wall, and that she was indicating that this wall was the historic wall, and I had indicated that I had questioned you on that, and you were indicating the wall up, potential wall up here, and that we went to look and couldn't find it. And Sarah was indicating that it is actually located behind the hedge.
Oh, it is. We couldn't find it. We tried
So
to
she
look
said
and
she had a
see.
picture and saw.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
trying to
great.
find it. It's on my,
Yeah.
somebody emailed it to me, and so it's not in a
Yeah.
easy to find place. But
Right. For clarity, the front wall is more of a rebel wall, which is not as unique, but the pier and cap walls, which were created by masons and are a really unique and character-defining feature of the Lower Riviera, are very special, and we really watch out for those because they're built just as these beautiful little piers with a whole cap, like you see the metal barrier walls along the freeway, but these are made out of sandstone, hand-cut by masons. So the craftsmanship is so rare and so unique. We really try and make sure they're, one, if can be exposed to the public, that would be the ideal because they're a public benefit, and two, that they're maintained and well cared for. We sent the owners of all of them several years ago a maintenance tips, and that we noted where they all were, so we try and just keep our eye out for them to protect them.
So as part of this application, they're requesting a hedge height modification to allow a hedge to exceed the 12 feet. I know Design Review has the authority to grant MZEs for hedge height between 8 and 12, but since they're asking for a modification, it's just all lumped into under my review of it. And so I would just want to make sure in terms of that approval or that application, would it have any effect on the historic resource, and make sure it wouldn't.
Well, if we couldn't see it when we went and looked. If that pier and cap wall is under those hedges, it should be revealed, and the hedges sat towards the property owner's side, and the pier and cap wall in front of it exposed. Vegetation on a pier and cap wall is not good for the stone or the mortar. So if that could be exposed on the hedge towards the property owner's side, it would work well, because then we'd have the benefit of both, I would think.
Okay.
My concern, if we keep that hedge at that height with that pier and cap wall under there, that pier and cap wall is just going to deteriorate and never get maintained. Okay, so that's just a stucco wall.
And then the photograph.
Oh, so you're talking of this one. Okay, that's not the one I was talking about. No.
That's not the one we were talking. We think that pier and cap walls are on the neighbor's side.
Yeah. It's definitely.
Yeah, this is not those.
If I definitely know that there's pier and cap here.
Yes.
I've just examined
We
that.
all saw that. Yeah, we all saw that. Okay, yeah, so this is not a sandstone pier and cap wall. This is more your private garden wall. So yeah, then we don't have a problem at all, because this
Right,
isn't
that's the wall we had saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
And-
sorry, I thought you meant you were on the other side and you didn't see it because the hedges were.
Oh, no, yes.
That's my
No,
understanding.
it's a whole different kind of wall that we were looking to see if it extended underneath the hedge.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so then this condition here is not necessary.
Right.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thanks
we're
a
all
lot,
clear.
Nicole. Yeah,
We should just look at the pictures first.
yeah. Well, she was trying to find it, yeah.
That's
So,
great. Thanks.
okay. Thanks a lot, Nicole. Okay, so I didn't let you do your presentation because my first question went into this, but yes, if you would like to do your presentation.
I think Ellen did a really good job of wrapping up the history. It's been pretty extensive. There's been some confusion. It's a very unique site, very constrained no matter what we would do, where we would put this bathroom addition or do anything, where we keep the trash cans, where we put the air conditioner, everything needs special permission, essentially. So the list is long, which is, in part for this process. We've, did try to work with the neighbor to do what we could to, appease him. And that was a difficult situation. And ultimately, we found his request to be unreasonable. We do have, and as you could see in some of the photographs, there is an existing little pocket here in the grade where this area, and the reason it's shaped as the way it is because that is at the same grade as the house. Once you go beyond this area, there's stairs and a grade change that would need to occur, which is why we didn't want to change the location of the door to remain on the north side. We'd have to cut into the open yard even further to create the stairs to get to that door. And it's not a door that would be open. It is to a bathroom, and it's essentially a second emergency exit, and to be used to go take trash cans out to the trash. It's going to be a solid door. And so, frankly, I think what the neighbor was upset about at himself from the past is in 1997, they did expand this bathroom ever so much. And, basically in here, they added a little strip. And so the noise that he hears from the bathroom is actually from this bathroom. And, that may stay the exact same because, it is what it is. But it was a 1997 project that was from a previous owner. And I don't think Lynn should be continued to be treated this way for a new project and a new location that we have an acoustic engineer clarifying that there's actually going to be less noise than what's there now. And I think the previous owners had sung in the shower and done lots of noisy activity in the bathroom, but this client lives by herself and doesn't do that. So if anything, she'd probably be using this bathroom more, which will, again, help result in less noise for this neighbor. So, we tried to work with them, and unfortunately, that wasn't a situation that was easy to resolve. So we want, to stay focused on the issues at hand here and not get into a neighbor dispute. And that was in a public comment that was thought that I was reporting violation about his hedge, and I've done no such thing. I don't know who did, but you could probably look it up at City Hall. So just for the record, it wasn't me. And,
It was 3 women that live up on Farello.
Okay. I mean, this isn't the only project that this neighbor has gotten involved in.
Focus on your project, please.
Yeah. So anyhow, also, I just want to point out that the house itself encroaches up to 5 feet 8 inches, or it goes 5 feet 8 inches into the setback. And this bathroom addition, as its closest point, is 2 feet less than that at 7 feet 7 inches as its closest point. So, we feel that is a reasonable distance. We're not proposing to encroach further than the existing house already does. And finally, I mean, there is no, like I said, other place where this could go. And we did, Ellen did point out this modified open yard, which is usable, and frankly, the dotted area here, at this exact dotted area, is not even really usable open yard. There's stairs. I mean, this is not a place where you would hang out. There is a little patio here, and that can't be identified on the plans as a designated space, but certainly, again, that was another reason why we didn't want to have the door and some stairs here, is it would cut into what seems to be or appears to be is a usable area. And, beyond this other special dotted line, there's all kinds of landscaping and plenty of open yard. It's a very unique site, and it's beautiful. And this area is truly where anyone would find more enjoyment sitting outside. And yeah, that's it. We've spoken with Public Works about the improvements in the right-of-way. That was apparent right up front as being something we would need to look at carefully, and we did. And our client has agreed to pay all the fees for all these modifications and minor zoning exemptions, and paying the as-built double fees for improvements that she did not install and inherited with this project. And lastly, I will conclude by saying she, is asking for permission to do improvements prior to construction, which is not always the case, as you know, and is very frustrating. And also, it was been a little disheartening to come into the neighborhood like this because her house, where she was living, was destroyed in the Montecito debris flow, and that's the whole reason she bought this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything else? No. Okay, great. I do have a couple of questions for you, Sarah. Sure. In the email that you sent yesterday regarding the door and the noise regarding the door, it alluded to another analysis that Dudek did regarding the air conditioning unit, and it's not in my packet, but in your email you indicated that there's been a blanket put on the air conditioner and then this enclosure. So there's been actual analysis of it?
Yes. So we have this. We consulted with Jonathan Leach on the design of this enclosure to make sure we wouldn't just build some random object. And that was one of the things that we offered to the neighbor immediately. We said, we will build this right now because we understand you're concerned about noise. And so we consulted with Jonathan. He gave us this design. We built it, and we've referenced it in our plans here, that we had a design to meet so that it actually even exceeds, but we just put it meets the 53-foot decibel measurement at the property line. And the installer of the air conditioner came out and tested it. So we can submit that results prior to building permit
That would be
issuance.
good if you submit it with your application.
Sure.
The other thing is that in the HLC, I noticed that they discussed the AC and the trash. Our ENZO requires the equipment and the enclosure to be 5 feet from the property line. This is just the enclosure, so they have the authority to grant a waiver for the equipment, for the enclosure part. So that's something when you go back there, you'll need to ask for the waiver. And it seems to me, since it's to mitigate noise, that, that'd be something you could tell the HLC why it needs to be closer to 5 feet from the property line. Because they can waive the distance of the location.
Okay, we do have the 5 feet, 8.
For the enclosure too. So
Okay.
that's the equipment and enclosure is what it is.
Okay, and then it's been on those plans this way from the beginning, so
Yeah.
it hasn't, there's been no change.
Okay. All right. Then the other, looking at the HLC minutes, unfortunately they don't go into the required findings. They just say that, so they will need to make the findings when it goes back again. But it says, the air conditioning unit and additional as-built site improvements are acceptable. I'm not sure what that is, because I know that this fence up here, number 12, it needs the MZE to be over 4.5 feet in the front setback.
So we paid both a MZE and a mod fee for these hedges and these fences.
Okay, so
So
then you
I
have
have
it
the
paid
receipt.
for.
And I asked that include the improvements, the trash location, and the air conditioning unit as well.
Okay, so when they talk about the,
Other as-built
that
improvements.
includes this too?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, then they talk about the hedge. Yeah, so that'll just be sorted out when you go back to HLC and really clarify for the record what the MZEs are and the waivers are, and make sure the findings are made, because they have the findings too regarding nuisance issues and noise and use and stuff. So they'll have to specifically state how these are, make those findings. Okay, so I did go out to the site, and thank you. You showed me around, and we walked up the street a little ways. That was helpful. And like all of you said, and like totally clear, this is like the prime example of why we have modifications, is that it is extremely constrained. It's substandard size. It has the two 30-foot front setbacks because it has the two front yards. And the zone is such that, you saw this little triangle. That's not feasible. So, this, again, is the prime example of why we need the modifications. And before I do that, though, I'm going to open the public hearing. There's no one in the audience, so it's hard to remember that. But so there's no one in the audience. But I do want to recognize that I did receive I received public comment. I received a couple letters from you, Sarah, clarifying issues. I did receive a letter from, or an email from Lon and Mindy Bailey, from another one from Mindy Bailey, Lon Bailey, Mindy Bailey, Diana Reinsick, Patrick and Cheryl Grace. They all expressed concerns regarding the encroachments of the bathroom addition. One was in regards to the front setback, but I think that was at the time that it was only noticed for a front setback modification. The interior setback wasn't noticed. So I think it's just in general, just concerns and saying that the setback modification shouldn't be supportable. And like I said in my comments, any addition would require modification. And so, but just because it needs a modification does not mean that it's automatically approved. You need to look at the effects or potential effects of that request on surrounding property. So the right-of-way, the neighbor's property, and then in regards to the open yard, is there still usable areas? So I recognize it's extremely constrained, but then we need to look at the other issues. The other concern is regarding the door on the east elevation, and then noise, the noise of the air conditioning unit. So like you said, you're going to submit noise information to illustrate that you meet our noise requirements, and our noise ordinance is such as doesn't mean that you can't hear it at all. It just has to meet these certain thresholds that it's low enough. So that's the way the noise works. And since you're not asking for a modification or a waiver or MZE from me for that, that's actually out of my purview. But I still wanted to ask you about that since it was in your email correspondence to me. Another issue that was brought up was regarding the neighbors' lights dim when the compressor comes in. Again, that's out of my purview, and that they should contact SCE. That it's not anything within my purview. So with that, I'll close the public hearing, and then I'll discuss the different modifications. So which order should I take it in? Actually, I'll just take them in the order that they're listed in the staff report. Okay, so regarding the front setback modification, you've been before me, Sarah, for front setback modifications, and there's the significance of the front yard, although it is private property, is part of the public right-of-way. In this particular, public streetscape, not right-of-way. In this particular instance, it is, I agree that is your secondary front setback, and there are a couple other important issues. Also is the fact that the house is below the grade of the street, and it is behind the hedge. And whether the hedge height modification is approved or not, it still can go up by the ordinance by 8 feet. And so the fact that the house is below and the hedge, it adequately screens it. It doesn't affect the openness of the streetscape. Also, the size of the bathroom addition, it is modestly sized. It's a 71 net? 72 net square feet. So it's not a huge addition. So in terms of the change to the public streetscape or potential effects, to the public right-of-way is not anticipated. So that modification is supportable. In regards to the open yard modification, I'm glad both you guys explained the thought process between how you came to this area. I agree with Sarah in that this is not, I don't know that this is the closest to meet our requirements, but it still doesn't, and that it's not 10 feet. And that, to me, this is silly to designate it as the non-conforming open yard. And since you're asking for a modification, I could require another area to be the designated open yard area. So given the constraints of your lot, again, the small size, the 2 front setbacks, you just can't meet anymore. What I would require the open yard area to be more in line here and go up to this wall and go till you get and stay 10 feet back from this property line, your primary, but until you get the 1250, because you can get the whole 1250 in this area. So to me, my approval of the open yard modification would be not to have this be part of your designated open yard area, that it all be really in the area that's mainly used. That's just the logical way, and it that way that we designated as this is your open yard area.
The only reason that we couldn't was, we were told, is due to setbacks. But because it's a secondary setback, I agree it's appropriate.
Correct. Option R. Correct. Yes, and that is why it can't be within 10 feet of the secondary front. So yeah, I understand the logic of having this line, but since now you're in the discretionary realm,
Okay.
I think the more appropriate line is to go to this wall.
Great.
Here, so that you can include that area. It still doesn't meet our locational requirements, but it does meet the dimensional requirements, and so that would designate your non-conforming open yard, because it's still, well, at that point, it's your approved open yard, because it's not non-conforming anymore because it was
Right.
approved, but just for our ordinance, what it's called.
We can change that.
Okay. Regarding the hedge height modification, again, for the same reasons, a highly constrained lot and the location of the existing development being pushed away from the corner, which is good because it opens up the corner, and the location of the usable outdoor area, there needs to be some kind of screening between there to make it more comfortable to use. I mean, it is your outdoor living space, and so the overheight hedge is appropriate improvement, or would help. It is consistent with the zoning ordinance and necessary to prevent an unreasonable hardship. I know I want to change the findings to not point to appropriate improvement, but more to the hardship of the property, because that's what my finding is, that this is an extremely constrained site, and so there is a hardship there. And so, given the location of existing development, your setbacks in that in order to prevent an unreasonable hardship that you can't enjoy the area, that the hedge height is appropriate. Now, in regards to the interior setback modification, that's where I have more concerns. I have never, I'm not aware that I have approved a door within the interior setback. Not only for noise, but just for the nuisance issues. You need lighting by the code. There's in and out. It causes a lot of conflicts between neighbors. And so I am not inclined to support the door in the setback, but I could support the extension of the line here. So the actual footprint of this is fine. I think it is appropriate improvement. It would not make sense to jog it back in like this. You know how it was jogged out in the 98 to come back in. But I don't think the door is necessary for this bathroom addition. I understand the desire and for it, but in terms of the potential conflicts between the neighbors, I can't support the door in that area.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What would you think of if we had a self-closing hinge? Because truly it's almost a safety issue of having a second access. And like I said, it
There's
existing.
existing.
and this isn't an actual door. It's more like it's a very old house. It's like essentially a window. It's painted shut, essentially. So really, there's one door, and as you know, with the landscaping and whatnot, even just to take out the trash, which perhaps may be one of the only times, other than an emergency, that this owner would open this door, would be to basically go out to the street and come back around to the trash can, and there's involves a lot of stairs and steps, and as we all age and whatnot, that's also something to consider. But a self-closing hinge would essentially guarantee that door, a solid door, would stay closed with the exception of those two situations.
I just cannot support a door in there. Is there another location you could put your trash? It's tucked in here. It is in the setback. It's a lot of interaction in here. Is there another place you can tuck it?
Not without it being visible from the usable open yard.
But that's on-site versus the public. I haven't supported a door in there. If there's entertaining here, people, then they go in and out the door. It just causes a lot of nuisance between the two neighbors and between the neighboring properties.
I just feel like this is a hardship. And frankly, I feel like the purpose of the zoning ordinance and the public notification is to do smart development. It's not to have your neighbors design your project.
I'm not saying they're designing the projects. I'm saying I've been doing the staff hearing officer now for over 10 years, and it's a consistent thing and it's a consistent concern I've heard. And so you are asking for special relief to have an addition in the setback. So I need to look at what the
I understand.
Yeah.
Wherever a second door would go would be in a setback, anywhere on this house.
not in the interior setback.
Okay, as you know, there's setbacks all the way around the property, and it doesn't seem, for a safety standpoint, that having one door is appropriate for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. And I bet you, if you were to look at the record, this may be the only house where that would even be the case, that you would be approving so that it only has one door. And it is an extremely constrained site, probably more constrained than all the other projects that you might be referring to. Just something to consider.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
In terms of, I know we've been talking about doors, but of any kind of opening in the setback?
It
is
could be
there
a
any
window,
other-
but non-operable.
I just wanted.
Okay, let me see what else I have.
Also, one more point. There is a door there now, just to clarify. So she's not proposing a new door. She's proposing to relocate and change the material to be a more acoustically appropriate door.
But it doesn't face the neighbor. So.
But it will generate less noise than the existing door does for the same neighbor.
So in regards to the conditions of approval, you've reviewed them and you understand them? You have questions or anything more? Okay. In regards to the condition regarding the visibility at the driveway and the street intersection, I would like to add in there that just a statement that not only will they remove and trim per the requirements of the Public Works transportation staff, but also they'll be maintained at that height, so that whatever they require, it's not only removed, trimmed, it's maintained. Okay, so in regards to, so then I said all my bits. So in regards, go ahead.
One more thing is I want to point out the existing door is already in the interior setback. So,
I understand all that.
okay, thank you.
As what I said, though, it's not on the side. It's facing this way. And I have allowed doors that face out this way or face out towards the backyard. And a portion of it's in the interior setback I have. But when it's directly facing the neighbor, that's when the lighting, the in and out, all that kind of stuff happens. So in regards to the front setback modification, I can approve that modification, and I would, like I said earlier, I would revise the findings to state that not only is it consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, but that it's necessary to prevent an unreasonable hardship, and that recognizing all the constraints of the site, and again, that is set below the level of Farella Road and it's screened by the hedge. In regards to the open yard modification, again, I'm going to switch it to be that it prevents an unreasonable hardship in recognizing all the different site constraints, and that given the location of the existing development and the usable outdoor area, that although it doesn't meet the locational requirements, it does meet the purpose and intent of the open yard requirements to provide a usable, functional outdoor area. In regards to the hedge, the same change about preventing unreasonable hardship, and that it provides an area, or provides screening to allow this to be more of a comfortable living environment, or outdoor living environment. And then in regards to the open yard modification, in order for me to be able to make the required finding, I will add a condition that there be that the door be removed from the proposed floor plan. If necessary, you can have a non-operable window in that location. But that, given the setbacks are intended to provide a sense of openness, the visibility, light, air, and adequate buffering between adjacent land uses, that the door would not be appropriate, and that also that this addition, it represents an extension of this line, and that's why it is appropriate to be in this location versus being jutted in. So in regards to the conditions of approval, I'll add the condition regarding that exterior door, and then also revise the designated non-conforming open yard to be this area that I indicated. No change to the public works right-of-way one, and then in regards to the visibility, I'm adding in that it be maintained at the height that transportation staff recommends. I'm going to take out proposed condition 4 regarding the historic sandstone wall, since there's not any of that located on your property. And then the 5th condition remains the same, the archaeological resources contractor notification. So with that, I make the revised findings, and the approval is subject to those revised conditions. And my action's appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And if you were to appeal my decision, specifically in regards to that door, it's filed here at 630 Garden Street versus up at City Hall. So I don't want you to run around where you need to file. I just come here 630 Garden Street. They also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if that was to occur, Ellen would contact you. Okay? Great. I adjourn the meeting.